When the colonizers came, everything contradictory to their own system.
To tell you, during pre-colonial times,
He studied Philippine history to prove that Filipinos
refers to a group of people bound together by their common language.
Hello everybody, my name is Simon and welcome to the Undersider.ph. And today we have gathered here four historians with different opinions. Watch as they uncover and discuss parts of the lost history of the Philippines through Rizal's point of view. Looking at this picture, okay? Now, what is the first thing that comes to your mind?
Beautiful. A country with melting pots of varying traits and practices.
I would say rich in history, culture, and natural beauty.
Okay, now with relation to what you have said, do you think a pre-colonial Philippines exists even before Spanish?
Definitely yes.
Of course.
Why did you say so?
Contrary to foreign accounts, our ancestors were not just some backward, jungle-living savages. In reality, pre-colonial Philippines already possessed a very advanced civilization way before the Spaniards came. Our ancestors possessed a very complex working society and a culture filled with works of arts and literature. We had a writing systems called the Baybayin, but then when the colonizers came, everything contradictory to their own system had to go. Sculptures, text, religious ceremonies, and virtually anything else that were deemed obscene, evil, or threat to their rule were eliminated.
To tell you, during pre-colonial times, women shared equal footing with men in society. They were allowed to divorce, own and inherit property, and even lead their respective barangays or territories. It was even said that pre-colonial Philippines was largely matriarchal, with the presence of babay lands and with opinions of women holding great weight in matters of politics and religion. But this largely progressive society took a serious blow when Spaniards came. So they relegated women to the homes, demonized babay lands as satanic, and ingrained into our forefathers' head that women should be like Maria Clara, mahinhin, self-effacing, and powerless.
Okay, proceeding to the second picture. As you can see here at the picture, do you ever consider our pre-colonial country as a nation?
Well, if we look at the definition of nation, it refers to a group of people bound together by their common language, identity, ethnicity, history, and distinct government.
When we talk about nation, it is also mean a stable, developed community of people within a territory and economic line.
With that being said, I agree because during this period, people have this pre-colonial common culture, clothing, spiritual beliefs and traditions, writing systems, form of government, and different group of tribes with different system or education and religious beliefs.
So yes, I do consider it because the Philippines back in the pre-colonial period was filled with indigenous peoples engaged in healthy trade with various cultures and economies in the region and the foreign traders.
One thing that leads people to identify themselves as a nation is by cultural commonality.
Just like on Rizal's perspective, nation is not just a conjecture of group communities. It is an imagined community with united people in which during this time, the unity of pre-colonial people was also evident and demonstrated.
This picture demonstrates a nationalism.
Okay then. Now, what do you think was Rizal's view on nationalism?
Dr. Jose Rizal had this fundamental belief in the application of morality to politics, in the power of truth, and in the possibility of change by non-violent action.
Rizal's view on nationalism reflects on how he wanted a mutual protection in every necessity, he wanted a defense against all violence and injustices, and encouragement of instruction, agriculture, and commerce as well, which he spelled out in the aims of La Liga Filipina.
Rizal also had this concept of nationalism by giving the name Filipinos in writing to the people of the Philippines. He pointed out that Filipinos had their own culture before the coming of the Spaniards.
Rizal saw that the real obstacle to the reforms he and the others in the propaganda movement was the presumption of the racial inferiority of the Indios.
Aside from that, one of the vital views of Rizal of nationalism was about education. He believed that the real liberation of his people lies in education. He paid attention to the education of women. He praised and encouraged the crusading women through his letter to the women of Malolos, for it is the women who open the minds of men.
In his life and his works, Rizal really recognized the equality of cultures as he took pride in his native language and culture.
Before we end this segment, here's the last question that I really wanted to hear answers from you. Okay, the question is, what did Jose Rizal want to accomplish when he learned about our pre-colonial history?
Rizal wanted to emancipate enlightenment. He wanted to recover the pre-colonial past that was erased from the memory of Filipinos by colonization. It was his objective to annotate and publish his works to correct the slanderous statements of the Spanish and the Philippines. Because he believed that the underdevelopment of Filipino society was not due to any inherent shortcomings of the natives, but rather to the distortions of colonial rule.
Rizal wanted to help us put meaning to our own struggles for survival. He studied Philippine history to prove that Filipinos had a culture of their own and that the Filipinos were not inferior to the colonizers. He wanted to shatter the myth of the so-called indolescence of the Filipino and to reduce those Filipinos who denied their native tongue into rotten fish. It was his pride in the worth of the Filipino that served as his conviction. He wanted for us to be inspired to move forward for ourselves and for our nation. And I think he succeeded in accomplishing that purpose.
Well, there you have it, folks. The history of what is today known as the Philippines may never be unveiled. But at the end of the day, we can only remind ourselves that there will always be two sides of the story. Again, this is Simon Taguran from the Undersider.ph, and thank you all for watching. And always remember, stay curious, Pinoys!